Mr. Steve Lech. Today, Steve. Oh, gosh. I was going to not forget that today. I did. Everybody, can we do the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Ah! Okay. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thanks for a reminder. Appreciate that. Today, as I was mentioning, we were honored to welcome Steve Lech as Commissioner on the Riverside County Historic Commission. Steve is the editor of the Chronicles of Riverside County, a prestigious historical journal. And Steve's considered a leading historian for the state, for the county of Riverside. The completion of the Ortega Highway was a culmination of efforts spanning 30 years. The eventual opening of the scenic, rugged link between Orange and Riverside counties. Steve will share the many major trials and tribulations required to open this key link. And without further ado, sir.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to wait to hear what I have to say first. So, as I told Jim and Dave, I've been nursing a real bad back, so I may be sitting down for part of this afterwards. So I'm not rude. I'm just in pain. So, anyways, this is a perfect example of taking on a project that you don't know anything about. Because I was approached by, I don't know if anybody knows Chris Jepson. He's the Orange County archivist. He said, you should come in and do a presentation for us, maybe do something between Riverside and Orange County, and we agreed on the Ortega Highway. And I figured, there's got to be stuff written about that. Wrong. There is nothing done on it. I was doing research like I was getting down into the newspaper articles and doing it like I was writing a book for it, because there's nothing done about it, surprisingly enough. Despite the fact that it's a fairly important road and it's a fairly well-known one, there isn't anything done on it. So it was kind of interesting, but also quite kind of harrowing because I only had a few months. So anyway, that's the genesis of this presentation here. And of course it starts, first of all, it's very difficult to get pictures of it, both old and new. I did drive it to try to get some new pictures, and I don't know if you've been up there recently, but it's undergoing severe reconstruction for like several years. I think they're supposed to be done in 25 or even 26, so there's very few places I could take pictures of that didn't have road graders and guys in orange vests and the like, and this is one of them. That's almost to the Orange County line there. So just as an FYI, there's not going to be a lot of pictures here. So anyways, let's go back to the very beginnings of a lot of this. And when I talk about the Ortega Highway here, I'm going to be talking about the road that was going to go up and over the mountains that could be used for both travel, commerce, tourism, and the like. Certainly going all the way back into mission days, if not beforehand, there were paths up the mountains to get up and over. There were some cattle ranches back in there due to the San Juan Capistrano mission and the like. I'm not talking about those that you could take you or your horse on. I'm talking about a real highway, what they used to call wagon road, over that can be used for commerce and the like. Because people say, well, there were the Indians and then there were the bad. No, I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about the roads. And it starts, a lot of the impetus starts with Elsinore. And of course, Elsinore, for its very few first years, was right along, just like Temecula, was right along the main line of the California Southern Railroad here, as you see here in the black. And that was all fine and dandy, of course, until that washed out. Yeah, washed out 2 times, but in 1893, it washed out for good because the railroad said no mas, and we're going to go up the coastal route there. So we were cut off down here in Temecula Canyon, and so was Elsinore. Now, instead of being on a main line, getting people through there. Now they're kind of on the end of a stub line then. And they were looking to be able to have more and more tourism, more and more tourists, people coming to visit and the like. You can't really do that when you're on a stub line then. So with that, of course, there was a call for a road, and as I did say, there was a road up there into some of the wilds. I don't know, well, you really probably can't see it from back where you are, but there is a canyon road up here. This is from the 1889 Beasley map, then, and you can see that how far north of Lake Elsinore it's going then. What they really wanted was what was coming in 1901. In 1901, we see the first mention of it. I couldn't find one before that, although it does say there is a movement on foot to secure the completion of the wagon road from the Elsinore country in the southern part of Riverside County to the Capistrano Hot Springs there. And this is what, like I said, we were talking about with the wagon road or so. This is not it. I had used a lot of illustrative pictures in this presentation. That's not it, but that's what it would have looked like there. So at least by 1900, there was talk of both counties now putting together this road. It took a number of years. 1904, there's talk about it again. And by 1906, the Anaheim Gazette is saying that the Riverside County has spent $5,000 improving our side of the road, and Orange County has not done its share then. 1906 becomes 8, 10, 12. By the end of 1912, really beginning of 1913 now, there is what's considered a proper wagon road up and over the mountains there. And it lasts for about 3 or 4 years until the floods of 1916 there. 1916 was one of the wettest years on record. I believe it was either number 3 or number 4 for the amount of water going through the Santa Ana River. Again, these are illustrative. This is the what's now the Mission Bridge over the Santa Ana River in Riverside, got wiped out. And of course, the road going up from San Juan Hot Springs over to Elsinore got wiped out too, and very severely. So much so that people had pretty much given up on it. They went out, looked at it, said, "The heck with it. It's not going to be worth it there." So that is 1916 then. 1922 starts, and we actually start talking again about replacing this road. And there are a few people going up and over trying to see what would be a best way. Eventually they say pretty much the run that's already there, albeit being wiped out, was probably the best way there. The Elsinore Valley Press says such a road would be of great benefit to Elsinore, placing the city within an hour of the Pacific Ocean and several fine bathing beaches there. The road would have unusual scenic appeal and would be bound to stimulate travel through the Elsinore Valley then. So by 1924 now, we're starting to see, thanks to that resurgence in 22, what we would consider to be the beginnings of what we would call the Ortega Highway here. And again, this is pushed quite a bit. A lot of people are for it. And what's happening now is you're starting to get camps on both sides of the mountains. One of the big draws, of course, is that from Elsinore, it's about a 60-mile drive to the beach there. To have a road up and over the mountains cuts that down to about 20 or so. Needless to say, that's a lot of driving that you don't have to do, et cetera, too. So by 1924, we're starting to see the beginnings of this here. And part of the impetus is that a lot of it already existed. Here's San Juan Capistrano, and see the road up here to San Juan Hot Springs? That's the majority of it right there. What still had to be done is the rest of the section in Orange County and in Riverside. The problem is that that's the hard section. If you've been to San Juan Capistrano and you've been up that road, you know that it's a fairly gradual ascent to go from San Juan Capistrano up into the hills. On our side, though, it's pretty sheer, then, which was going to make it all that more difficult. So even though most of it already existed in Orange County, a great expense was going to be had on the part of Riverside County. At least it was thought there. So we have that. Here is the ad in the Lake Elsinore paper to show us what they're thinking of now to go up and over. So there's the road, there's the hot springs, go up and over, and then you're into Elsinore. Okay, so what do we do to get this idea going? Well, we start to have a whole procession of meetings there. And the first one was held in Elsinore. And at these meetings, these are like big parties, basically. They have all kinds of food. They have all kinds of speeches and the like. If anybody's ever dealt with local government, you know that because of the Brown Act in California, all decisions have to be made in a public forum. You know, you have to post what your agenda is going to be like, Didn't exist in the 20s and 30s. So they're inviting all the supervisors they can get to come to these things. They're wining and dining them and the like. And Elsinore was the first of the large meetings here. And so at these meetings, you've got at least two each of supervisors from Orange and Riverside County there. Riverside County is very gung-ho. Orange County says they are not in a position to fund such a road. They are already spending $18,000 a month on quarantine issues. Sound familiar? Well, in 1924, there's an outbreak of hoof and mouth disease, and we were pretty much quarantined at home for a lot of instances. No large gatherings. They even shut down the Easter Sunrise service in Riverside, too. So we're spending a lot of money on quarantine issues, $300,000 to $400,000 a month annually on roads. And there's going to be a lot of other expenses coming up. So Orange County says no. But the Elsinore people are very gung-ho about this. Then let's get it going. They tell visitors they want the Lake to Ocean Road. At this time, there was all kinds of names for it there. And then, of course, they had all kinds of arguments for it, too, here. So we're getting to see now a big push from a number of people, but also a lot of pushback, too. And that can be, well, it can be positive on both sides, if you will. One of the people who was very gung-ho about it was T.C. Jameson. T.C. Jameson was the Riverside County Supervisor for District 1, which included all of them, Corona, Temescal, Elsinore, that neck of the woods. And he begins to champion for it, although, of course, he doesn't have a lot of the money for it there. But what he does see, and what a lot of people are seeing too, is that maybe we could resort to using our prison road system there. In the 20s, Riverside County started Prison Road Camp. And this was used to build a few of our main highways here in the county. When it was first started, it built what we now consider Gilman Springs Road from Moreno down to San Jacinto. Then it was used to build a good chunk of the Hemet-Idlewild Road. Then they turned around and used it to build most of the Pines to Palms Highway down to the desert there. But during this time, the thought was, well, why don't we use it for this road? Well, we're in a number of other construction periods too, so that doesn't work out too well. But we are doing a lot of other construction here. And so by 1925, work is getting started on part of this under the federal government. Why the federal government? Well, because they want to be able to get firefighters into the mountains to fight fires. So they've got an interest in this too, although a minor one. Yeah. So they have started work with what was called a mountain gang. That was what was referred to in the papers there, building a part of the of the road up in the hills. Again, this is not it, but this is what you would have seen roughly at this time. You notice there's a bunch of guys with picks and shovels, a Fresno scraper, horses, and the like. This is how you would have built a road at that time then. This is actually the building of the Hemet-Idlewild Road, but it's pretty typical of that time frame then. So Mr. Crane of Elsinore states that the road is virtually finished, although it was kind of laughable then, as you can imagine. And so, of course, what happens? Well, they have another big get-together, another big meeting there, where, again, Mr. Crane makes his speech, and the Orange County supervisors are, again, what I meant to tell you is this is going to be like you're watching a tennis tournament. You're going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because the Orange County side is not on it again, but the Riverside County side is. And the Orange County supervisors turned down the idea here simply because they think that it's too much to ask the entire county to try to fund a road that is in essence a local road. At least that's their thought on it there. It was only a local project then. Well, they did agree to form a road district if businesses along the way could cough up some of the money and the like, but that doesn't really happen. And so throughout most of 25 and 1926, nothing much really happens then. Oh, and by the way, the cars in these slides are all from that year too, so FYI.
Wow.
So by 1927, the road idea gets renewed here. And it's got some more people behind it now. It's got supporters from Dana Point, San Clemente, and the like. And now there's a new drive for this. But remember I said the Orange County supervisor, many of them said that that was basically a local road. The people who had gotten together to try to push this again thought, maybe we need a new tact, okay? Maybe what we need to do is make it a state highway there. And so this new drive started in 1927 is really done at a much higher level as a state highway. Then you could get state highway funds, you could get the Department of Transportation behind them, and you get a much better road too, okay? This is what a state highway would look like at that time. Does anybody know where that is?
74.
What's that?
Is it Highway 74?
No, it's not Highway 74.
Indiana?
No. No. The photographer's back would be basically on the Whitewater Cutoff on the 10. And this is the San Gorgonio Pass. The Morongo Casino building would be right about here. There's Mount San Jacinto and Mount San Gorgonio there. And that's where Whitewater is today. But that's what it would look like done as a state highway there. So with this now, there's a lot more enthusiasm going on about this. It's not considered now a local affair, etc. So, of course, what happens? Well, they have another big meeting, another big dinner, another big invite to everybody. This time it's at the Mission Inn in Riverside. And the Elsinore to Capistrano Road survey ordered by 2 counties. Yeah, because they all got together and they wined and dined everybody, and the supervisors came up and said there's no road money for building. There just, there simply isn't then. But they did agree to appropriate some money for survey work. And so almost immediately, next few months or so, we did get started doing some surveys. And Alex Fulmore was our surveyor at the time then, and this is part of his crew. This is up in the mountains, but of course they would have been much the same. Gentleman on the left here is J.F. Davidson. Remember that firm from downtown Riverside for many years? J.F. Davidson and Associates? Well, that's J.F. Davidson there. He was a surveyor at the time. So they have their big meeting and the like, and surveyors are at work, etc., etc. And by 1928, there, the effort is still being renewed. Why? Because they have another big get-together. And this time, it is at the St. Anne's Inn in Santa Ana here. But what's happening is people are starting to say, look, we've got a lot going on here. Maybe we don't necessarily need this. And the press, the Riverside Press has an editorial. It says, the press holds strongly to the view that the Riverside County supervisors have acted wisely in telling the promoters of the Elsinore-Capistrano Road, very frankly, that the project cannot be financed the coming year at least. It is estimated the portion of the road in Riverside County would cost $100,000. And for that, let's take a look at some of the other roads that are being built here at the time, because we might get the idea that we're just kind of in a vacuum. But for about an 6 to 8 year period, look at all the roads that are being built and financed here in Riverside County. Going west to east, the what's now Temescal Canyon Road, the Corona to Elsinore Road here. This is the Winchester to Temecula Road, what we would know as Winchester Road today. This is Jackrabbit Trail, very short but a very, very important road for most people because it keeps people from leaving the county and going up into San Bernardino then. So you can stay within the county. Banning to Palm Springs Highway, Palm Springs to Indio Highway, the state highway down to Yuma, the state highway over to Blythe and then to Phoenix. And then here's the Hemet Idlewild Road in purple and the Pines to Palms Highway here in green. So during this time, we are surveying, building, and constructing all of these roads at various times then. And so people are kind of getting fed up with a lot of other people claiming, oh, ours is most important, it's going to be, do the most good, as people in Elsinore were doing at this time here. Well, with that in mind, now, of course, the emphasis shifts. Riverside County's kind of out of it. Orange County decides to take the bull by the horns here, and they have their own big get-together at San Juan Capistrano here on August 8, 1928, and they pledged to go ahead and get started on it, building it. Now, the road from San Juan Capistrano to the Hot Springs is a road, but it's not a state highway type of road. And so they want to do that. And it's at this time that a new concept comes about. Under the California Highway Improvement Act of 1917, California jurisdictions were allowed to make joint road districts between a city and a county, two cities, two counties, what have you. So the concept of having a joint road district between the two counties came up. That did win a lot of support to a certain degree then, but Riverside County was rather hesitant about it for many of the other reasons that I just told you here. So Orange County launches its new drive here to do the road, and Riverside County, our supervisors opt to go ahead and do more survey work and also to reroute the proposed road. And for that, we need to look at our old map here. Here is our, see it says to San Juan, see the road here? And look at how it goes all the way out here and back and over, way north of Lake Elsinore itself, okay? After the survey work is done, it's been rerouted to its present route, which takes it here and then all along this way. This mainly had to do with the steepness of it. This route here was very steep. Most cars could do it, but trucks could not. Then, of course, if you're trying to get goods and services back and forth, you need the trucks then. And so they needed to make it longer and a lesser of a slant. So here is what they ended up surveying then. Okay, so they say that it's understood that the present route is not going to work, so they resurvey it like this. And by late August, now they do what? They have another big meeting. This time, it's back here in Riverside County at the Amesbury Hotel in Elsinore there. And our friend T.C. Jameson states that he's firmly behind it. Surveys are going to start pretty soon and the like. And the Orange County Board of Supervisors unanimously passes a preliminary agreement for this joint road district then. So things are going a little bit then. It's brought over to Riverside County and it's kind of put on hold because they didn't want to be committed. And at this time, we get another opinion as to the Riverside County portion of it. And that is from a very powerful member of the supervisors, John Shaver. Now, he's not from here. He's from Hemet, well, San Jacinto, really. But he is, well, from 1893 to his death in about 1937, there were only 4 years that he was not on the Board of Supervisors. He was very well known, very well respected, and had done a lot to help people coming into and through the desert part of the county there. Yes, he does look like the Lucky Charms leprechaun. There, that's him. I wanted to put the little bubble that says they're magically delicious on there. But that's him. It's the only picture I could find of him then. Well, why is he so important? Well, again, we're building all these roads, okay? In this desert area alone, this is just east of Indio, we have 3 things named for John Shaver. Shaver's Well, which he put in, Shaver Valley, and Shaver Summit, which is now Chiriaco Summit. And so he did a lot to do that. Why is this important? Well, because his opinion was, with all this going on to bring people in and through, why would we pay for a road to take people out of the county? And he couldn't understand that, and he actually got one of the other supervisors too, Supervisor Flaherty, to agree with him too. So there was some pushback on this, because he saw it solely as a route out of the county. We're going to take people from Elsinore, put them down at the beach. Somebody did explain to him that roads generally are 2 ways then, but you know, he stuck by that at least for a little while then. And we can't keep dumping people at the beach. They got to come back sometime. So anyways, alrighty. So our survey work does start. Here we are at the Orange County line then. And 1929 comes into play now, and we do start to see some construction there. In February, apparently there's still no consensus on the joint road district, and so Orange County just opts to go ahead and start. They say the heck with it. We're going to go ahead and start. Now, whether that's because political favors, whether that's to shame Riverside County into it, we don't know. But they just go ahead and say, I'm going to go all out and get started on it. That was based on that meeting from August of 28 when they were at the mission there. So they get started here pretty soon, and 2 issues come to the forefront here. One is what to name it. There. And Father St. John, what was his name? Father St. John from San Juan Capistrano suggests this man, Captain Jose Francisco Ortega, there. He had been part of the original Portola expedition there, and when he settled down here in California, he was affiliated with San Diego quite a bit, but he's also the one who led the move to found San Juan Capistrano, the mission there. Well, what are we going to name it? The resident priest at San Juan Capistrano suggests him. A number of people like it. There, just as an aside, it just so happens that one of the supervisor's wives is a direct descendant of him, so that doesn't hurt the situation either. Then, and that was noted too. So, anyways, we name it for Francisco Ortega, a member of the Portola expedition there. And since Orange County is doing it, they're the ones providing the funds right now and doing it. They're the ones who got to name it. He didn't have anything to do with Riverside County, but we were kind of on the outskirts at this point then. Okay, the other, the other thing that's happening at this time too is that people, at least one person from Elsinore, is really starting to tick off the board, and that is David Cooley. And yes, this is his booking photo. from much later. But in the early 30s, Mr. Cooley is a real estate agent in Lake Elsinore. And he storms up in front of the board one meeting, and he says, if Riverside County will appoint a committee which can show us where a road could be built at the time, which would bring more wealth into the county or be of more practical use than the Elsinore-Capistrano Road, then Elsinore will join hands and help them build it. It is roads that make real estate values. Unless Riverside County appropriates at least $50,000 to get this work started, I will personally and at my own expense stop every car at the crossroads and tell them that we are going to take out the politicians and put in businessmen. Well, that didn't put him on the good side of the Board of Supervisors, and they didn't take the threat too nicely, and they basically told him to sit down, shut up, and your turn in your time there. And at roughly the same time, Al Fulmore comes back with his survey to indicate that such a road at state guidelines would be close to $250,000 to put in, just the Riverside County portion of it then. So that's a couple of big things happening here that aren't going really well in our favor for it. Meanwhile, Orange County has their groundbreaking ceremony, and they get started then. So with that, then come about May of 1929, despite everything that's happening, they do come to an agreement on the joint road district. And so Orange County and Riverside County are able to do that then. And with that, the state also starts to get involved, because they have to, because of the state funds and the road district thing. So by 1930 now, the state is getting involved with it on a much better level then. Okay, so March they do the agreement here, and then the state approves it here. The state approves it in March. It was approved a little bit earlier then. But basically what this also does is it invokes a cost-sharing plan. It says how much it's going to cost and who's going to put up what then. So between the three entities here, Orange County pretty much gives Riverside County its share of the state funds. The state opts in because it really wants to have access to the mountains for firefighting capabilities too. And so it's going to take a 4-year period. You can see the different things here. We're giving in fact we're giving exactly half of what Orange County is, and then the state of California splits those two in there too. So $675,000 is what it's going to cost to make a state highway out of this from Elsinore to San Juan Capistrano then. And you can see what the breakdowns are going to be then. So with that now, they've got the surveys, they start in on some contracts. There's going to be a total of 4 contracts. And the first one is pretty much the roughest portion. It goes from the end of, I should say the hot springs up into the mountains. Now luckily for them, of course, what's happening in 1930-31, the Great Depression, there's a lot of savings in materials costs. And so they're able to push it quite a bit more. But over the next couple of years now, we have additional contracts to build. And again, these are not shots of it, but this is what it would have looked like then. So by 1931, a good chunk of the mountain section is done, and a portion of the section down into Elsinore is done, so that by April 2nd of 1931, the first car traverses the entire Ortega Highway. But that's not a public car. That's an engineer's car. There are a bunch of engineering crews going out, getting map readings and elevations for culverts and stuff like that. And so, the press is big, first car over, and then all of a sudden they have to retract that and say, look, we don't encourage you to go over it. It's not open. We just put a car over it for engineering purposes there. So watch out. So people ask, when was it done? Well, there's the first date it was done. then. This is also the time when we see the name Inspiration Point come to play. And this is the point where you can look out over Lake Elsinore there. That was part of that, too. And then by 1931 or so, or excuse me, into 31, then we are getting into the rainy season, and people are, this is December of 31, and the press has got to put another disclaimer in. It says the impression has gotten out that the Ortega Highway across the Temesco Mountains from Elsinore to San Juan is negotiable. But this is a mistake, County Surveyor Fillmore states, and motorists are advised to keep off the road for the next few months. It will be possible to travel the road next May when the rainy season is over. And this brings up a point here. When highways were built at that time, they were dirt and gravel roads. Okay? They did not have the equipment to compact them properly in order to pave them. And so they would create a road that looked like this and let it sit for 2 years and let it get traveled on, rained on, compacted and like. Then they'd come back and pave it. And so when you see this guy, of course he's not part of the Ortega Highway, this is what was happening though. In the rainy season it could get pretty muddy and cars could get stuck and the like. Nowadays we have the big equipment that can do this for us, but back then they didn't have it. And so that's what they were referring to in here. Okay, so we finally get over the rainy period in 1932. Construction begins again, and by May of 1932, we are about ready to open up here. They're talking about July in March, but then May 19th, it is thrown open to travel there. And there's a lot of hoopla, but there's not a big groundbreaking ceremony that I could find. And probably because we're in 1932, it's the Depression. You don't have big things like that. So this could be our second finish date to it, but there's a third one that is usually used, and that's because the road was done, but you still had to get across San Juan Creek in Orange County. And this meant going on that nice new highway all throughout here, and then having to take a treacherous way through, up, and around the creek there. So in September of 32, they put out bid for the bridge there. Work began in October, and then it was finished in January of 34 there. So here's the road. Now, this is about in 1945 or so. You can see it with its newly aligned alignment there. And the Ortega Highway completed, January of 1934. Now you can go on the bridge. Now you don't have to worry about any of that stuff then. So, and of course, here's the view from, this was for a number of years called Jameson Point. It was actually named for T.C. Jameson, although it does not seem to have stuck. I saw one reference, and I just saw another one the other day to it being called Jameson Point. But for all the time, all the postcards, everything, this is called Inspiration Point. And of course, it's still there. Now, I was looking for any old pictures, and of course I didn't find any. But then I was reminded of a movie called Alicia. And that's because right about the time the road was done, there was a nudist camp that started up in the hills, just right off the road. And this really irked a lot of people in Riverside County. In fact, there were more headlines about the nudist camp than there were about the roads for a few weeks. How dare anybody put up a nudist camp? The DA was going to go arrest the people and yada, yada, yada. Well, there's a movie made about it. You can see it online called Alicia there. And lo and behold, they have some great shots from along the newly made road here. The car is on Grand at the beginning of the Ortega Highway. So you can see the dirt portion of it there. You can see them going up and along there. This is on the Riverside County side. The lake would be just down from here, then. And of course, then they stop at Inspiration or Jameson Point there on their trek up. Then they take off. There they are. And I'm dating this to at least 1932, maybe 33. That is a 32 Ford Roadster they're in, so it can't be before that then. But there they go. They take off. And then, you know where the candy store and the like is? Okay, this road here is opposite that. And if you took that road in for like a mile or so, you would come to Alicia there, the old Alicia camp there. So anyway, that is it there, the story of the Ortega Highway as much as it is. So, does anybody have any questions? Yeah, Jim?
Was the Alicia then, was that like a documentary movie or was it an entertainment movie?
It was one of those movies that was trying to sell you on the lifestyle of it. Yeah. The couple that's going up there, she works for the camp, and the gentleman there is going to go enjoy, outdoors and nature and all this bit. It's one of those that's trying to sell you on that whole back to nature type of thing. So it's, it's early 30s. What do you expect? Yeah.
Is it still there?
No, the nudist camp is not still there, but from what I understand, some of the buildings are. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Is that the same as the McConville?
Same as what?
The McConville thing that's up there? I don't know where it used to be. I remember driving by.
It's been under a couple of names, but I don't recognize McConville.
McConville used to have that. Right up
Not that I've heard of. I still haven't heard of it.
No, the town that's up there. Pretty much the top.
Carrizo?
Oh, El Carrizo. Okay. No. El Carrizo's at the top, like you mentioned. This is not far. You're probably going to go about another half to 3/4 of a mile from Inspiration Point to the point where the turnoff is, and then it goes in from there. So, yeah, it's not too far. Uh-huh.
Do you know anything about the Lookout restaurant?
The what?
It's called the Lookout?
Yeah.
Look out.
Oh, no, I've not looked into anything that's there now. Just the road.
So the Lookout Cafe is not where Inspiration Point was?
Looks like
The Lookout Cafe
That's
is
where-
just down from Inspiration
Oh, it's not the
Point.
same like their parking?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a few hundred feet or something
Oh,
like
okay,
that, yeah.
okay.
Uh-huh.
I think in the early mid-70s, there was when jacuzzis and hot tubs were the big fad. There was a bunch of hot tubs up there. Was that what the Capistrano Hot Springs is?
I have no idea. Again, I looked at the road and the building of the road up through 1934. That's all. So, any other, yeah, Rebecca?
Steve, some people don't know that number one, you're a member of our society. We want to thank you for being from Riverside. You've done a large body of work regarding roads in Riverside County. Why don't you tell the people here about that?
Oh, well, there's this. I have a book out on the Pines to Palms Highway, too. Plus, I have the big book along the old roads about the various early roads that went through here, too. So that's kind of one of my specialties. I love that kind of stuff. So looking at the Prison Road Camp, too, and all their things. And then Fulmore, I mean, he did so many of these things because he was our surveyor for something like 40 years. He was with the department or so. He was a long timer then. And then, of course, the person who succeeded him was Clinton Keith, for whom the road is named here. And he was another long time one, too. He was about 30 years that he was surveyor, but he worked for Fulmore before that. So, yeah, a lot of it. Yeah,
How about a lecture on Highway 395 when it comes through Riverside County?
because the guy in front of you is the guy you need to talk about 395. No, I'm finally getting some of my other stuff done before I take on anything else, so. Yeah, Bonnie?
What happened to Mr. Cooley that he had I think that was his name, that he had a mugshot?
Yeah.
What was that
Was that
question?
guy's name? Was it
Mr. Cooley?
Mr.
The
Cooley?
mugshot?
It showed a mugshot or a,
The mugshot?
he was arrested.
Oh, okay, David Cooley, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he was a realtor in Lake Elsinore in the 30s. In 1946, he was arrested for lewd acts with a minor. And that's why you have that booking picture of him going into San Quentin for, I believe it was about 20 years or so.
Good ring.
Yeah. So it was just one of those things. What I do when I do the research is that if I find people, I try to track down maybe descendants and see if they have any pictures. And that's what I was trying to do. And all of a sudden it kind of pops up, and I'm like, oh, good, he was arrested there. And I really didn't care necessarily, except that it's got it right there with it. So it's like, oh, okay, great. So, but that was 15 years later than when he was up here telling the Board of Supervisors, you better give us the money or else I'm going to stand outside and tell all the politicians to go to hell. So, yes.
When about did El Carrizo pop up? Did it go, was that before or after Ortega Highway was put in?
The highway would have made the little town, but that whole area, the Carrizo, it's part of the rancho that was up there. There were 3 little small ranchos that were up there that were given to a man whose name is not going to come to me. They're just inside the Orange County line, although one of them may straddle the line or so. But that's where the name...
Majeski, one of those?
No. No. Madame Majesko is the Polish actress who has her house kind of there. No, it's not going to come to me. But anyway, if we've got a copy of Jane Davis Gunther's book, look up El Carrizo, and it'll tell you who it is. There, long before I ever think about it again. So yes.
Were the hot springs a developed resort back?
Yeah.
All the way back?
Yeah. The question is, were the hot springs a developed resort? Yes, from many years beforehand. That's why that road existed. The San Juan Hot Springs had been a medicinal place for the Indians before that, etc. Sort of like, all of ours were. So that was already a resort place, I think into the 1870s, maybe even earlier than that. So yeah, it was already a place on the map and all that. It was just a matter of connecting them.
Is that neat little bridge the same one that was built in 33? It's got the little arches by the hot springs.
My understanding is that it was replaced a few years ago.
It looks like, there's no date. It'd be really interesting to know.
I think it was replaced.
Okay, well, at least they keep the same style. It's short and it's narrow,
Right,
Okay.
right. Bonnie?
Did the boom that Elsinore expected to happen after the road came through, did that develop? I mean, did it really increase?
The question is, was there a boom in Elsinore? No, not really. Mainly because by the time they got it done, it was the middle of the Depression there. But they were able to get more people through and to there. So, it's always had resorts. It's just that they may have gotten a little busier. But again, there wasn't a huge boom, at least from what I could tell. Because again, 1934, tough times.
I saw a thing on Anaheim the other night, and I think it said Madame Majeska built what they call a castle in Elsinore. Does that sound at all?
No, that's Amy Semple McPherson.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Amy Semple McPherson. And that's still there, up on the hill. So, yeah. Jim?
Do you know if since that was the right year, was any WPA crews working on this road?
No, because it was beforehand.
It was before.
Most of it was done by 32 into 33. And then, it took the WPA a little bit to get started, so no, not really. Now, there's indications that they did some work, like on the Pines to Palms Highway, beautifying some of the curbs, so they may have done work later, but not in building it. So. Uh-huh.
Yeah, in the early days, you mentioned that Orange County was consistently not interested.
It went back and forth, just like it went back and forth with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but then towards the end, you mentioned at the end of the late 20s, early 30s, Orange County decided to get on board and just do it.
Right.
Do you know what changed their mind?
It may be because they wanted the road ultimately. It may be because they were going to name it for the guy's wife's great-grandfather, whatever it was. Whether it was, again, to shame us into doing part of it, whether it was to get people off their back or just to spend money, I have no idea.
Okay.
Then we do just, because unfortunately a lot of this stuff is probably lost because using the newspapers and a few other things, all you get is, we're against it, and about 6 weeks later, we're funding it. And then 3 months later, we're against it, but then 2 months later, we're funding it again. And that's what happens. But the cycle tends to be when Riverside County is up here, Orange County's down here. It's almost like an inverted sine wave there. We can't seem to get them both together until the very end. Yeah. Lonnie?
Okay. This is a little bit related, but since you're into doing, research on all the roads, and that's kind of your thing, what's your favorite road to travel in Riverside County?
What's my favorite road to travel in Riverside County? Probably the Pines to Palms Highway. The mountains to the desert there. Although there are a lot of them too. So. Uh-huh.
71, Highway 71, when we came here in 1968, and it seemed to me that this parkway they call 79 was 71, and you know how it came out, you came through Corona, Corona, and do you know when that changed to 79, or was it just me?
No, it was 71.
She's right.
You're right.
It used to be 71.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's fine. I don't know when it changed though. There are, if you get online, there are 2 or 3 very good websites detailing the history of highways in California. And they'll tell you down to the date, minute, second, when something changed, when it was realigned, where it was realigned to, and the like. It's actually kind of interesting. So.
The 71 first went to San Diego, and then they cut it off and made it go out to Kansas. And then when the 71 was withdrawn, they left behind 71 going through the Anza Valley, which is why we have 371 as our highway going through there. 79 used to be Stage Road, going up through Stage, and then they aligned it to Winchester Road. 79 was reverted around, and that's been 71. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Here you go.
71 was commissioned by Governor Wolf in August of 1931, and went from Pomona all the way down through Elsinore, and then out through Wonga to San Diego, and then other changes took place, but yeah, 71 was here.
That was part of the Imperial Highway.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds like it's the Imperial Highway.
It was
Yeah.
part of the Imperial
Okay.
Highway, and then 3 years later you get Highway 395 and Highway 71 coastline through the valley of the area.
Well, there you go. Okay, anything else? Alrighty.
I was just going to say it seems to pop from party to party. Maybe they just didn't have quite enough parties to.
Maybe? Who knows? Okay, I'll hand it back to David then.
All right, well, thank you so much, Steve. Appreciate your time and information.